Good evening and welcome. My name is Tim Decora, and I'm proud to serve as the project coordinator for the Wanakee Community Cares Coalition, or the Coalition. On behalf of our coalition and our incredible partner, the Wanakee Public Library, thank you for being here tonight and for showing up for something that truly matters: your health, your well-being, and the strength of this community. At the Coalition, our vision is simple but powerful: to make Wanakee a healthy and resilient community. And we know that doesn't happen by accident. And it happens through connection, education, and the courage to have real conversations. That's exactly what the April Wellness Series is all about. Each year we bring in speakers who are willing to do something not always easy: share their stories, their struggles, their setbacks, and most importantly, how they found ways to overcome. Because the truth is, every single one of us at some point in our lives will face challenges with our mental health or overall well-being. And in those moments, it is easy to feel stuck or alone. But you are not alone, and there are tools, there are strategies, there are healthier ways to cope, to grow, and to move forward. Part of our mission at the Coalition is to create conditions and opportunities that prevent and reduce substance abuse. And one of the most powerful ways we can do that is by opening the door to conversations like this, by learning, by listening, and by reminding one another that asking for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. So tonight, I encourage you to lean in, be present, take something with you, and if something resonates, don't hesitate to reach out, start a conversation, or seek support, the support that you deserve. Because a healthier, more resilient Wanakee starts with each of us. And now it is my privilege to introduce our second speaker in this year's April Wellness Series. For many, the role alcohol plays in our lives isn't always something we stop to examine until we begin to wonder, is this helping me or holding me back? Tonight's speaker creates space for that kind of honest reflection. Carrin Wahl is an alcohol recovery and transformational coach and a community-based wellness leader who helps people rethink their relationship with alcohol and reconnect with who they truly are. Her work is grounded in lived experience, which allows her to approach this topic with authenticity, compassion, and real understanding. She knows that change isn't always easy or linear, and that's exactly why her approach resonates with so many. Through her return to self approach, Carrin helps people look beneath their habits, build trust within themselves, and create a life that feels more present, grounded, and aligned. This isn't about judgment or pressure. It's about awareness, curiosity, and giving yourself permission to explore change in a supportive way. So I invite you to lean in, stay open, and take away whatever speaks to you. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Carrin Wahl. Woo. Yeah, we'll go like this.
All right. Yeah, here we go.
Carrin Wahl, what is up?
Well, excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how has your year been so far?
It has been pretty good overall, I would say. There have been a lot of new things that I've welcomed in, and I've experienced a little bit of challenge that goes along with that. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good this year.
And I know you and I spoke on the podcast that I have about, I think it was about a month and a half or 2 months ago that you appeared on the podcast. And I remember some things vividly. One thing is that we talked about New Year's resolutions, and there's a new term out there now. Instead of resolutions, it is intentions of the year. So what is your intention for this year?
So it started out as kind of like a word of the year, which was bold and to be bold. And it's kind of evolved a little bit to saying yes to new opportunities, which goes along with being bold, but to really just kind of embrace new experiences and just, yeah.
And you're being bold tonight because this isn't something that you're used to doing. Correct?
Certainly not. A year ago, I would never have done anything like this.
You'd have those nails all chewed down.
They kind of already are.
Okay. You went on a little spring break with a good friend in the crowd today. tonight. Tell us where you went.
We went to the beautiful island of Aruba.
Jamaica, that little song.
Every single person I told we were going to Aruba sang
Started
that
singing
song.
that song.
Absolutely. So that was cute.
So you went to Aruba, but there were some bumps or hiccups, bumps in the road before you got into the air. And I know I was following you on your Instagram page and you were posting some of those bumps or hiccups. Tell us what happened.
So we were leaving. We got to the Madison airport and we were like, everything is great. We got through security really quickly and everything was wonderful. And then we got onto the plane to get on our flight to Chicago, and all of a sudden we're just still sitting there and we're still sitting there and we're still sitting there. And I think it was like 4 hours or something like that that we were still on the plane. And we found out it was,
Hey, by the way, that's a couple of movies.
yeah, it was. Well, it happened to be the like one day where the wind was like really extreme. It was like 64-mile-per-hour wind. So we couldn't take off. So they had a ground stop out of Chicago. So that was number one, what had happened. So we finally got the clear to take off and go. And so we started taxiing towards the runway and they stopped us again. And this time it was for a electrical, I don't know, an electrical something that was going on at the control tower. And so that was another hour that we sat in the plane and we finally were able to take off. And it was probably the most terrifying flight of our entire lives. Like when I look over at Dan and he is like nervous and clenching the seat, I knew that this isn't a normal flight. This is really odd turbulence. So we finally got to Chicago, thank goodness.
ORD, O'Hare.
We finally get there. And there was a situation where on the way there, our flight ended up getting canceled for the day. So it wasn't leaving again until the next morning. And we decided with all of the things that were going on with TSA that we didn't want to risk leaving the airport. So we slept in the airport on the really comfortable cement floor. We were there for about 24 hours.
All right. Now I'm going to start getting to some of the questions that we have tonight to talk about. But with all that time, some things probably entered your mind. I'm going to just read these quick and I'm going to ask you how you handled each of them. So the first thing that would enter my mind, and it probably entered your mind, is anger. The second would be prior to 2000 and some odd days ago, drinking might have entered your mind because you're in the airport, there's bars, alcohol essentially everywhere. And then you also had to be of support to your partner, Dan, because not only do you have to keep your emotions in check, but you also probably had to keep his in check. So let's talk about the first one, anger. How did you handle that? And maybe how did you handle it 2000 plus days ago? Talk about that.
So anger definitely came into play. I get very frustrated very easily in these situations. Actually, the first day it wasn't so bad. The being in the airport was kind of an adventure for us. It was definitely the anger came through on the flight home when we also were delayed and we got back to ORD and there was nothing open. And so I was hangry. But yeah, there's definitely anger that goes into it. But we eventually kind of embraced it a little bit and just kind of made it a little bit fun. But yeah, it wasn't fun.
So drinking, because and I've talked to substance users, alcoholics through my journeys, that it still creeps. People still talk about it creeping in at times. And we're going to talk about the number of days that you have had sober, but did it at all enter your head that, maybe a drink would be okay, or it would pop in, and how long does it stay? And then does it leave, or did it even come in? How did you handle that?
So it comes in a way, but for me, it's more like I need a Mountain Dew right now. It's definitely changed from the I need a drink to like I need sugar or I need like a treat or I need something to like regulate my nervous system. But when I'm in an airport and I'm looking around and I'm seeing the people drinking at 9 a.m. that instantly is a reminder to me that I am so not that person anymore. And it actually kind of just like makes me really sad for the people that are there. And that's like how they're coping with it. Cause it's just something that's really off-putting to me now.
And it's a good reminder of maybe where you used to be, because flying somewhere, I'm sure when you were a little bit younger, that's probably something that you did. And I know it was something I did
Mhm.
before I got into the same space you did of, yeah, I don't drink anymore, nor do I have to get to the airport and calm my nerves with a drink anymore. There's other ways that I can do that.
Right. Yeah. It's like party started the minute you got to the airport, before. And now it's like, I just feel bad for the people that's how they're choosing to spend their vacation.
So it's not, and the last part is being supportive of your partner, Dan. It's not just your emotions you need to handle, it's also his. And it maybe built in distraction a little bit, or unless you were his built in distraction. But how did you manage his emotions?
Well, he is my emotional support person. So he's a very calming presence in my life. And he's very good at like not getting worked up when I'm worked up. So that's really helpful for me because my emotions go all over the place. I get really frazzled, and he's usually really calm. Plus, he loves the airport and he loves that kind of chaos. Like he's like, great, we're delayed. We get to watch the airplanes leave for the next 5 days. So that's something that he loves. So thankfully, I didn't have to manage that. He's pretty calm, cool, and collected in those situations. So he's more there for me in my stress. So,
Perfect.
mhm.
So you completed some training recently. What kind of training did you complete? I want to say, I think if I remember correctly, it was last year. And did it have a name?
So it was actually this year. It was the CCAR Recovery Coach Academy, which is considered like the gold standard of being a recovery coach. And also, it's kind of like being a peer support specialist in a way, but it's like a different name. And then also, I did the International Association of Wellness Professionals. Oh, I can't believe I got that.
Say that 5 times as fast as you can.
Transformational coaching. And that took a few months to do. And I think that might be the next question, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead
So
and say it.
let's stay
Yeah,
on task here.
yeah.
How long did the training last then?
So the C card training took about 2 weeks, and it was, I believe, 4 hours a day for 2 weeks, and then the other one was, I think, it took me about 6 months to
Okay.
do.
And again, I'm kind of going back to the podcast a little bit because you mentioned something, but was there an event that prompted you to take that leap into recovery coaching? And I think it had a little bit to do with being like at a cabin up north that you decided to, you know what, I'm going to do this.
Right. So it kind of started during my the beginning of my journey of going alcohol free. That was a time period where we were kind of unable to go out. And so I spent a lot of time online. That's kind of how everybody was living their life at the time. So I shared my journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the sad, and everything. And that seemed to really resonate with people. So I had a lot of people reaching out to me in that time that were saying, you're inspiring me to do this, which I thought was absurd at the time because it was such a messy process. And I even had said to a friend at the time, like, I don't want that. I don't want to be inspiring. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to like get from day to day and like be able to handle my life. So that was kind of always in the back of my mind, and I helped people. But then we were up at our cabin at Door County, and it was in August last year. And all of a sudden, I just got this like in my head, like, start writing out your story. And I was just writing it in my notes, and took like an entire day. And I just was like, I'm gonna become a coach. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna help people in a more official capacity. And it just kind of couldn't get it out of my brain ever since that moment.
With starting new things, and again, just from thinking back to what you had said earlier or before, was some anxiety. Was your anxiety talking to you during that time when you decided, I want to be a coach? And then was your anxiety talking to you and saying, yeah, this is not going to, you're not going to do any good at this. Drop that thought. was that occurring?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was, anxiety in all different forms of like getting started. What do I do? How do I do this? Am I the person to do this? Like, who am I to think that I can be like all of these other coaches I'm seeing and I'm going to be able to like step into this completely different field I've never been in? And like, do I even belong here? And that happens to me still on a very regular basis. I think that imposter syndrome is something that doesn't like go away no matter how long you're doing it for.
So speaking of the imposter syndrome, and I actually had a coffee meeting this morning with somebody and they talked a little bit about that, and voila, here we are talking about it again. What is that in your thoughts? What is that and how did that affect you?
I think it's just a belief that you're not good enough or you don't belong doing the thing that you're trying to do, or that you're, trying to be like these people that are doing it and you're just never going to be good enough to do that or be like them.
And how do you quiet your anxiety or those negative voices that start coming into your head? Let's say even today, let's even go back to 12 hours ago when you arose and you were thinking about, hey, I got to go and speak in Wanakee tonight. How do you quiet those voices, those negative thoughts?
It's really just like a mind shift set. Like I have to remind myself every single time I say I'm nervous to I'm excited, and just things like that. But I do belong doing this. Like there is a reason that all of that horrible stuff I went through and all of that rough parts of my life, there has to be a reason for it. So that's what I choose to believe whenever I'm getting, that self-doubt. I remind myself like I wouldn't have gone through all of that if it wasn't meant to be something. And so that kind of helps out.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit to, let's say, 6, 8, 10 years ago, when those voices and that anxiety would come in. What would you do?
I would drink. I would definitely be like, like I don't even think I had the like thought processes that I do now of like self-awareness or even being in tune to those kinds of emotions, because I was just drinking all the time. And when you're drinking alcohol and consuming it all of the time, you're really changing your brain structure a lot. So your brain isn't really like, dialing up the way it needs to be. So I don't think I really was as in tune to things as I am now. I would just be like, oh, just got to go drink again. And then that'll go away.
And now you have some tools in your mental health toolbox that you can go to. And alcohol is probably still in there and may always be in there, but it's now maybe pushed to the back of the toolbox or buried at the bottom. And you've got all these other tools that you can go to calm that anxiety or those, voices in your head and such. So we're going to go back even farther now.
Hey,
You grew up in Wisconsin Dells,
sure
the
did.
Dells. What was that like? And was there a point, that started your journey into alcohol use disorder?
Yes.
So let's
So,
let's let's go back to um, growing up. Talk about your young days.
all right. So I had a really unique growing up experience. I grew up in the Dells, the tourism capital of Wisconsin, and I grew up at a
of the
place
of the world.
of
Come
the
on.
world. The best place in the world. It truly is. We grew up in the best place ever. But I got the experience of growing up at the Tommy Bartlett Show. So my summers included being around 20 something year old young water skiers and circus performers. And I would run around just kind of unsupervised as a kid. And you're 11 years old and you think everything is cool. You don't have to be under your parents' wings so much then. So I was watching these skiers and everything they were doing and idolizing them so much. And they were always drinking, like very, very heavily. We actually lived for a period of time in a trailer right next to their like party place where they had all of their keg parties and their after bar parties. And I just thought they were the coolest people in the entire world. And I wanted to be exactly like them as soon as I could be. So we had kind of an above ground pool in our backyard. And my parents had a party one time. And me and my friends were like, we want to try drinking. So we went in their cooler and we cracked open our first beers. And I think I was about 11 years old. And about a year later, I tried vodka for the first time. And yeah, that was just kind of like, okay, I'm cool now. Now, how do I just continue doing this? And eventually, um, kind of just drank every opportunity that we could sneakily get away with it.
So as a former teacher, I'm thinking 11, 12 typically is sixth grade. And then you go to junior high or middle school age, seventh and eighth grade. What was that? Did it start to just continue to build? Was it, or did it just come and was it every day?
No, it was more so just like in the summers, like during the school year, my friends in school would never would do anything like that. They were not like goody two shoes, but very intellectual into many different activities. And it's just not something that we did during the school year. It was more the friends that I had in the summers that came home. But I don't think it really picked up until I was about 15, 16, where it was more regular, like we're sneaking Mike's Hard Lemonades into the woods and trying to sneak into the skier parties and stuff like that. It was more experimental. But after hitting 15, 16, 17 is really when it probably hit the most. We were trying to hang out with the skiers every single day and would just get sent home and be like, come back when you're 18. And we sure did. I got a hotel room right next to there on my 18th birthday. And that's where I spent my birthday at. You guys can't kick me out now.
I'm 18.
I'm 18.
Speaking of 18, well, 17 is you graduated early from high school. And when we say early, you were a late birthday.
Mhm.
So you could have very well been a senior the following year. But after high school, you would start your adult life. Talk about what kind of life you were leading after high school and into kind of your 20s.
I was, as you can imagine, drinking all the time by this point. I remember my high school graduation. I was so hungover. I slept almost the whole entire time. I didn't even know some of the people that had come were there. But as soon as I could get a house and like move out of my parents' house, I did. And that was the house all of the kids hung out at. So we all hung out and partied there. And my life just became all about like the party scene and going to concerts and music festivals and just like using any excuse I could to party and have a good time.
So you're going through early life and you're getting into your 20s and continuing this kind of lifestyle of being maybe a party girl and people knew you for that. At age 28, you would get a phone call that no one wants to get. What was that phone call all about?
I was at work, working at Pizzeria Uno in Lake Delton, and my cousin was on the phone and told me that they had taken my mom to the hospital. She had collapsed, and they found a massive brain tumor in her brain.
And subsequent assessments and taking a look at everything, it was deemed that she had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people listening, what kind of cancer was that?
I was called glioblastoma multiforme. So it was a terminal cancer right from the get-go. The kind she had, I believe, was on the rare side. I know that there's different forms of glioblastoma, but the kind that she had was really aggressive. So they had to immediately do this big surgery. We had to go in and make a lot of decisions and figure out if we were going to do the surgery, would it be helpful, what the success rate of it was. So that was like a life-changing overnight kind of situation.
And was there part of the prognosis? Was there 6 to 12 months, a year, 2 years, if they were able to, tackle this with chemotherapy or other therapies? Was there a timeline that they gave?
If the surgery was successful, she would have had like 2 to 4 months, but she ended up living a year and a half. So she did do chemo and she did do radiation. And at one point, it was very clear that it wasn't going to work. Like it was just too rapidly growing. It kind of grows little spider webs and kind of takes over a little bit. So there's really they could only get 75% of the tumor out in the first place. So they knew it wasn't going to she wasn't going to be here very long, but she did live a year and a half, which is remarkable for that kind of cancer.
Mhm. So your mom would eventually pass away.
Mhm.
What happened with your alcohol usage from that point on?
It just, I mean, if it had could have gotten any more worse at that point, it did. I also was, doing other substances at the time and just being like very reckless overall. I had had a relationship end. I moved into a house downtown Dells with some friends, and I was just, I mean, I didn't really like, at that point, I just had no boundaries or anything. I was just running around wild and taking advantage of the friends I was living with and just really focused on partying and just being withdrawn from my family and from the people that were really trying to be like, I'm a little worried about you. I'd be like, you're not my friend if you're worried about me. I want to go party. The people that are there supporting me are the people that are here partying with me.
You mentioned in some of the notes that we were sharing back and forth about using alcohol to numb things. And what impacts was the numbing having not only on your emotions, but maybe on your personality? Was there anything occurring? Were you silent? Were you getting angry? Everything in between?
I was just becoming more and more like a shell of myself. Like I truly think that like my personality was just going away and I was only like alive when I was drinking. I think during the times that I was sober, I was at work. So I was only at work or I was only drinking. Like I was really throwing myself into that kind of thing. But the numbing just made me like very distant from who I was as a person. And I'm sure that affected everybody around me because I wasn't like a fun person to be around at that point. I was selfish and used my mom's death kind of as an excuse for a long time to just like get away and be able to treat people however I wanted to treat them. And, none of that is good.
Well, for time's sake here, we're going to fast forward to a date, and I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna ask you a question. So when I mentioned Sunday, March 8th, 2020, what does that date mean to you?
That was the last day during the day into the evening that I ever drank alcohol. And that was the day I quit for good.
What was happening leading up to that time? March, March 6th, March 7th. What was happening in your life?
So during that time, and probably the 6 months prior, I was in living here in Madison by this point, and I was just not myself anymore. My mental health had really declined. The drinking was really taking a toll on me by this point, but I was seemingly living a pretty normal life. I was out with friends at the local bar every night, seeing live music, and everything seemed fine. But what people weren't seeing was whether I was out with them, I was still sitting at work every night drinking by myself. So it was no longer about socializing. It was about just like feeling miserable, being really, really depressed, and just feeling very lonely and very miserable all of the time for 6 months up until that point. And that night, I had had enough. So,
It's so crazy, and because of some of the training that just popped into my head, completely off script, but alcohol is a depressant. And when you're depressed, some people want to get out of that. And how do they do that? They think an alcohol that can do that. It certainly numbs some things, but it's depressant, and you're adding more depressant to a depressed emotions and mindset, and it's just crazy how people do that.
mm-hmm, truly.
And over and over and over until something happens. So when some people get sober, they refer to a rock bottom. And a rock bottom could be a number of different things. It could be health problems. It could be mental issues, mental health issues. It could be troubles with the law, spending some time behind bars, or relationships crumbling. What was your rock bottom?
When I reflect on that question, I feel like I had many, but I ignored a lot of them. So I had at one point many underage drinking tickets, 2 DUIs. And I think my second DUI really started hammering it home for me. But really, what did it for me was the decline of my mental health. Towards the end, I had suicidal ideation on a very regular basis. And that night, particularly that I quit drinking, was the night that it was the worst and the loudest in my head, that you don't need to be here anymore. Well, that's what I was telling myself. And so that was the closest I had come to following through with not being here anymore. But then also a couple moments later, I heard a very loud voice in my head that said, "You're never drinking again." And that was the moment that I stopped and never drink again.
I want to go back to a term or a phrase because it seems to be something I've heard in the mental health circles is suicidal ideation. Talk about that for a second.
So for me, it was something I've always struggled with. I think many points in my life growing up, I always kind of had depression a little bit, but when I got older, it almost became a comfort thought to me. And this is not something I've, really shared with many people, but whenever there was something bad going on in my life, or when I really would think about it, my comfort thought was always, well, I could always kill myself, and that would make everything be okay and everything would go away then. So suicidal ideation is just kind of the glamorization and the thinking about suicide on a regular basis, or just using that as like a go-to in your mind. And for most people, that isn't something that sounds very comforting, but it does become that for you when you're to that level of depression.
I know I've talked to people that are in recovery with alcohol or substances and mental health, and in particular the amount of alcohol usage that takes place in the state of Wisconsin and how it's glamorized and how it's accepted. And go back to the DUIs, how I'm sure there were friends of yours or people you knew that came up to you and said, "Hey, it's okay. I mean, I got one too," or everybody gets those. It's almost accepted, and it's not like that everywhere else.
No, it's not.
Was that were people saying those kinds of things to you?
Oh, it's Wisconsin. It's totally normal. Like everybody gets those. Like, yeah, absolutely. That's just something, I mean, still to this day, when I hear that somebody got a DUI, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. It's just one. You'll be okay. And it is not a good thing. So it is very normalized, even with, the realm that I'm in of knowing how dangerous drinking is. I still, refer to, well, one's not so bad. You'll be okay. And it's just not the way to go about it.
Since the April Wellness Series has some mental health components to it, in addition to the talking about alcohol and substances and whatnot, what kinds of symptoms were you experiencing when you were drinking? You talked about the suicidal ideation, but what kind of symptoms did you notice that you were having? Were they the classic ones of fear, of anger? What was going on with you?
Check, check, check. All of it. And bad anxiety. It was the anxiety waking up the next day and like freaking out about like what you said, what you did, who did you offend, who did you hit on, like what were you doing? It was just this constant like noise in my head that just never stopped. There was depression. There was, even like physical sort of like shaking and all kinds of things, so it was
Classic symptoms.
pretty much all of it. Yeah.
Racing heart,
Racing heartbeat.
checking your pulse, and maybe looking at some of the watches now, read how many beats per minute you have, and checking
Absolutely.
all that stuff.
Always monitoring.
Did you turn to anxiety medication during this time? Because I know a lot of people want that quick fix. And, maybe doctors prescribe it because they're not an alcoholic, but they know that anxiety medication works. Were you in that group of people?
Not during the time that I was drinking because I was, not adulting. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't even going to the doctor. I was focusing on drinking. But a couple years after I quit drinking, I did go and get like a situational like beta blocker for the anxiety because I'm not drinking anymore. So now I'm like feeling everything. But I will say, because I quit drinking, a lot of my anxiety has completely dissipated. And now it's just situational. Like when I'm getting ready to do something like this, then I get some anxiety. But on a regular basis, I'm not experiencing that anymore.
What are you doing now in April 2026 to quiet your anxiety that you weren't using before you quit drinking? What are you doing now to calm those nerves? You already talked about some situational anxiety medication, but what are your go-tos when you were thinking about today's presentation?
Um, I love going for walks. I think going out for a walk will help anything that you're experiencing. Yoga, I love meditation. I love a little breath work. I do this thing with my feet that I found recently that's very comforting for me. So I just wiggle my feet a lot. And I don't know where that came from. I think I had a panic attack for the first time like last year or 2 years ago. And then I had another one this year. And I just started soothing with wiggling my feet. And for some reason, that's really helped me. So that's why I've been doing that the whole time I've been up here.
I know when I started when I approached figuring out what was my issue with my anxiety, I think if they would have said, "Hey, you got to walk across hot coals 3 times a day to calm your nerves and reduce your anxiety," I would have did anything. So if you're going to wiggle your toes and it works,
It works.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Who are you leaning on for support um, early, or actually before you quit drinking? Who are you leaning on for support? Anyone?
So this angel that's in the room with me, her name is Deb. She was there for me a lot. I don't even know if I probably wasn't very good at voicing the things that I was going through. So I know we've talked about it before, and she's mentioned like I wasn't so aware of the things that you were going through at the time. But she was just showing me unconditional love in so many ways as a support system, just leading up to it that she was also obviously very supportive when I decided to quit drinking too. And really, my support system was anybody who would listen to me on the internet.
Hmm. We're going to give the days here a little bit, but you've been sober for quite some time now. Along that way, did you have some people that were supportive and now are out of your life? Or did you have some support people that are still with you along your way? Because I've heard of people that when they get sober, they lose some friends along the way and they also gain some new friends. Talk about some of the support people in your life now, and then did that happen? Did you lose some friends?
Absolutely. So I had a couple of friends that were already alcohol free. I think my friend Amy was a year ahead of, maybe 6 months, something like that ahead of me. She was a big factor because she was there right alongside me in the Tommy Bartlett days. She had been there. We grew up the exact same way. And so when she decided to get sober, that was like if she can do it, of anybody, I can do it too. And then I also had my very close friend Kylie that also had been alcohol free. So I had a good support system. I'm very lucky in that way. And the more I went out and found out there were people that were alcohol free, that this whole time at the bars, I thought they were drinking. I had no idea they were alcohol free. So this world kind of opened up. Did I lose people along the way? Absolutely. Because we have this idea that when we're out at the bars all of the time and we're seeing the same people and we're at the same live music, that we're making this connection with people. But the truth of the matter is, those aren't friends, those are bar buddies. And they do not stick around when you decide to get sober. Those are people that you still will only see at those same places when you go there. And they're not the people calling you and trying to hang out with you on a regular basis. So it's really important that you kind of create a sober community and find people that are into the same thing that you are. And I've been very, very lucky to find that.
As of today, and got a little drum roll here. As of today, you've been sober for 2,242 days. And there are some people that maybe are going to be listening to this on a recorded basis or somewhere out on the internet, and they're going to hear that number, and they're in their addiction right now, and they're thinking to themselves, I can't even stay sober for 6 hours or a day or a week, and you've got 2,242 days. How does that feel when I say that number?
I feel very lucky and very grateful that this is something that I choose for myself every single day, because every single day you wake up, it's a choice to remain sober. So I feel very lucky and very grateful and very proud of myself, honestly.
And I have to say that I'm very proud of you as well, especially the relationship that we've built in this journey of recovery. It's good to be able to walk with you.
Absolutely.
And be able to support you. Let's talk about what Carrin Wahl, certified recovery and transformational coach, is doing now. What kinds of work do you do?
So I am doing one-on-one coaching. So I help people and support them like a, sober pal, and help them in whatever way they need. I've also been working on curating some sober spaces in the Madison area. So I've been doing my recovery hikes. We do those one Sunday a month at Governor Nelson State Park. We just had the first one this last Sunday, and it was really, really wonderful. So I'm just really getting my foot in the door with those kinds of things, and being really open to receive any opportunity that's coming up in space, and saying yes to things.
Okay. Big question here. If somebody is listening right now, and they want to write this down for themselves, or they know a neighbor or a loved one that could use your help, where do they find you?
So I do have a website, carrinwahl.com, and I'm all over social media. So my Instagram is sobriety.inbloom, which is kind of the brand that I'm creating over the coaching. And I have a spot right on my website that you can book a discovery call with me. So it goes right to my Calendly, and you can book a call with me, and we can get on that call and just see what's going on for you.
Okay, we're still in the Wanakee Public Library here, and we're getting ready to close her down. But I want you to take us through what happens if I were to call you. I get on a call, and I need some help with sobriety, addiction recovery. You said book a call on your website. What's the next step? I'm on the phone, and take me through a phone call.
So basically, I will just ask you how you are coming into this call today. And I'm really going to give you the space to share maybe some of the things that you've never been able to say out loud to anybody in your life before, and maybe some of the things that you've never really given yourself the opportunity to think through. So I'm really going to listen. I'm going to ask you some motivational interviewing questions. So I'm going to just kind of help you and guide you think through this on your own. I'm not here to tell you what to do, tell you what the best thing for you is. I'm here to guide you and support you and help you figure that out on your own.
Sounds pretty simple.
It is.
And then you also have some avenues or resources that maybe you can take them only so far.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other resources you have that you can share with them?
So it depends on where they're at with their use. If it's something that sounds like it might be needed to handle in a medical capacity, I do have contacts that I can get them into a rehab or to a detox. And it really just depends on where they're at in their journey. My training luckily provided us with a very thick pamphlet for pretty much every recovery, every sober living house, every phone call, every place you can make in the Madison area. So if you're needing help in any kind on that level, I can get you there if I can't do it myself. So.
And because of how the world operates now with the virtual call and Zoom calls and phone calls, if somebody's listening in California right now or Florida, are you able to help them?
Yes, I do most of my coaching over phone call or Zoom. It's really up to the client how they want to. Most of the time, I prefer the phone because then it takes off that extra level of feeling like you need to put yourself together when you're already in a very vulnerable place. The last thing you need to worry about is what you're going to look like. So we really just get on like a call. I usually do it 3 or 6 month containers, one-on-one calls every week, and then I do daily check-ins via text messaging, voice memo. Really, it depends on whatever the client's needs are.
And because you got to pay the bills and you got to pay the Zoom bill and you got to pay the car bills and the phone, there is some fees attached to that. And that's something that you can talk with each person and what do they bring to the table? Those are discussions you have then with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually by the end of the discovery call, we go over all of that. So there's no surprises and we make sure that it's accessible to them.
That's excellent. So we got about 10 minutes left, and we're going to go through some bullet points. So you have some suggestions on how to succeed, and these come from lived experiences where they've worked for you. And our suggestions would be try some of these things, incorporate them into your own recovery or your neighbors or your loved ones recovery, and this is a good time to jot some things down. So I'm going to have you talk about these in about a minute.
Okay.
And some will maybe go a little longer and some will go a little less, but we'll try to get this done in about 10 minutes. So the first one is get radically honest. What does that mean?
So when you make the decision to stop drinking, you really have to get radically honest with yourself. So you need to take a deep dive into the whys you're doing this. So I always suggest making a list. And one side, you put down what alcohol is adding to your life. And on the other side, what has alcohol taken away from your life? And really sit with this. Don't just do it really quickly. Think about it, go back in time as far back as you need to go, and just walk through your relationship with alcohol.
Excellent. Number two, find a like-minded, sober community. What does that mean to you?
So there are many different ways to find a sober community. You can go out into your community. I know there's a lot of them on meetups. Also, there are a lot of them online. If you get on your Instagram or your Facebook or you type in groups for sobriety, there are communities, there are meetings. There's a lot more out there than just AA. I know that that's the one that's the most popular that people hear about the most. But there are many different pathways to recovery. AA is not the only way. And find the community and the thing that works for you. That's how you're going to have the most success.
Good. Number three, keep yourself aware and educated about the harms of alcohol.
Yeah, you really got to know. I think that we have a little bit of like cognitive dissonance when it comes to alcohol, where we know it's bad for us, but we just don't ever take the time to really educate and find out how bad it really is for us. So really take that time. I really suggest Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind. She really gets into kind of the physiological effects of alcohol on our body. So it's really important that you educate yourself about that.
Number four, find movement you enjoy.
Yeah, go hiking, go for a walk, start going to the gym, running, biking, yoga. I mean, just even stretching. It's really important to just find movement, get in your body and meet your body after so long. So,
Number five, no, you don't have to do it alone. And I'm sure there were times where you thought maybe you're the only one that is going through this. Talk about that.
absolutely. There goes back with finding a sober community or just knowing that you don't have to be alone. That's why we have recovery coaches here. You can find us and reach out to us. You can go to AA, you can find a sponsor, you can find a community, but you never have to do it by yourself. There's always somebody there that will be happy to support you.
Number six, and you kind of already hit on this a little bit, but if there's something that you missed, talk about it. Follow a lot of sober pages.
Yeah, there are so many people that are living life alcohol free online. And if you're already scrolling on Instagram or Facebook, follow some of those pages so that it just kind of stays fresh in your mind every day when you're scrolling. If you're constantly having it put in front of you, you're more likely to, remember it and also Quit Lit. There are some amazing books out there. Quit Like a Woman is one of my favorites, to just kind of learn more and feel less alone about it all.
Number 7, attend sober events.
Yeah, whether you're not drinking or you're just curious, go. There are so many fun sober events that are happening, especially more and more now. There's hikes, there's retreats, there's yoga, there's ecstatic dance, there's regular dance, there's meetups, there's, mocktail bar crawls. There's just so many fun things. We're at a really fun time in all of this. Go find them and you'll meet some great people and have a good time.
Number 8, know that you don't have to change your life completely.
This is a big one, and this is what I base off kind of my approach to coaching, which is the return to self approach. So, a lot of people think they have to overhaul their whole entire life, and that can sound really daunting and really scary. But you really don't have to change your life completely. You just have to change the drink in your hand. So, you can really do all of the same things you were doing before. Just have a LaCroix there instead of the beer.
Or a Diet Mountain Dew.
Or a Diet Mountain Dew, whatever you need.
Number 9, recover out loud.
I know in the beginning it's really scary and vulnerable to share that you are doing this. You're afraid that you're going to fail and that people are going to see it. But once you have it a little bit farther under your belt, I think it's amazing to recover out loud and show other people that it's possible. I think it's the most inspiring thing somebody can do.
And number 10, the last one, be gentle with yourself.
There's going to be a lot of frustration and it's going to be really hard. And I have a sign in my bathroom that I see every day that says, be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can. And that's just really what we need to remind ourselves no matter what we're doing. So.
Okay, let's talk about just that reminder of the website where people can get in touch with you. Just go through those letters again.
Yeah, sure. So my website is carrinwahl.com. So CARRINWAHL.com. And on there, there is a way to make a discovery call with me. There's a page for my recovery hikes. And I've also recently started a newsletter, which I'm really excited about in an effort to not have to market so heavily on social media. So there is a place on my website, I believe, that you can sign up for that also. And I recommend everybody sign up for it.
Absolutely.
Pretty fun.
As we wrap up tonight, I want to sincerely thank you, Carrin, for sharing your time, honesty, and insight with all of us, and including the people that are watching on the internet right now. Your message is a powerful reminder that change begins with awareness and compassion, and you created some awareness tonight, and certainly brought and spoke with a lot of compassion and conviction as well. So thank you for that. And thank you to everyone here tonight. Your presence reflects the strength of this community and a shared commitment to growth, connection, and well-being. Before you go, take a moment to reflect on what resonated with you, and including the listeners on the internet. And don't be afraid to take the next step, whether it's starting a conversation or seeking support or calling Carrin Wahl, booking that Calendly.
Yeah.
Discovery call. We hope to see you at our final April Awareness Series event, which will be in May, not April, but May, when Keith Badenhorst joins us on Thursday, May 7th, for what promises to be another meaningful evening. So I want to thank you all tonight, and I hope you have a great night.